Rookie corners are usually bad. Almost 40% of corners drafted in the first or second round play at a below average level in their first year. But rookie corners aren't usually as bad as Jeffrey Okudah was for the Lions in 2020. There were a couple flashes, but Okuda struggled mightily in coverage before having groin surgery late in the season. Okuda was thought of as a surefire, high-level prospect, so what happened? The Lions based predominantly out of man coverage under Patricia. While Patricia may be gone, Aaron Glenn, who's from New Orleans, is likely bringing more man coverage and a similar philosophy in the secondary from his time with the Saints. In fact, the Saints ran the highest percentage of cover 2 man in the NFL last year. That's both good and bad for Okuda. He'll have more help over the top and has all the man coverage ability in the world, but he also struggled in a man system just this last year where he gave up a 77.4% completion percentage and 11.2 yards every time he was targeted. This last year, Okuda often traveled with the team's number 1 receivers. That meant he went through a gauntlet of Devontae Adams, DeAndre Hopkins, Julio Jones, Terry McLaurin, and DJ Moore. Not an easy slate as a rookie. The good news is that Okuda's problems are all fixable. He graded out well on his ability to close, but was inconsistent with his physicality. His biggest issues are timing, patience, and just staying in position. Way too often, Okuda was caught flat-footed and relied on his athleticism to try and bail himself out. At the NFL level, that just does not work. The Saints are running a drive concept here with a dig by Emmanuel Sanders, and the Lions are defending that with a triangle coverage to the trip side out of a cover 1 robber look. That means that Okuda on the outside has the first out-breaking receiver. The linebacker has the first in-breaking receiver, and the nickel walked up at the line of scrimmage has the third receiver to release whichever direction they go. Okuda picks up his man, but doesn't get out of his stance or into a backpedal until Sanders is 2 yards away from him. He slow-played it for too long, and he's now put himself in a terrible position. With Sanders stemming him to the outside, he has to respect that outside vertical threat and turns his hips to protect the sideline. That gets him way out of position, and Sanders is easily able to get back inside and break on his dig. A pretty basic release and move beat him because Okuda waited too long to get himself into position to break and run with the receiver. As a corner in man coverage, if you're the first person to turn your hips, you're probably going to lose. Simple technical things like that got Jeffrey Okudah into trouble all season. He started to be more disciplined towards the end of the year, but it was a constant battle. Okuda is again in man coverage down at the bottom of the screen. As the receiver comes off the line, they work to sell an outside release. Again, Okuda doesn't get into a backpedal to keep his cushion and stay square with the ability to break on the receiver whichever way they go. He instead immediately opens up to the sideline as his first move. The receiver plans to get back to the slant, and Okuda has put himself in a bad position to be able to defend it. If he's going to play the receiver that way and open his hips, he's got to also be able to close space and be able to physically wall off any inside release. By staying 1 to 2 yards away from the receiver laterally, that gives them all the space they need to get a clean release and then cut inside with no way for Okuda to wall them off or prevent that cut. The quick hip turn paired with his over-patience allowed for the offense and receivers to dictate the tempo of routes on him. He's in a pure reactionary position without using any physicality, so receivers were able to move or manipulate him however they wanted. While he would tend to be overly passive, the right blend of patience can make him a really good corner. He has the tools, he just needs the discipline to stay in front of the receiver for longer. The patience itself isn't a terrible quality, but overcommitting while also being patient is what's getting him into hot water. At times, he showed that he could blend the two together. This rep against Justin Jefferson is a good example of that. You can see him trying to wait out Jefferson, who's running a fade down the sideline. Instead of immediately opening his hips though, he's able to shuffle and stay on top of him off of his release. Since he stayed on top, he's able to get his hands on Jefferson and force him to work through the route with hand fighting. Okuda has a fast enough trigger that if he stays patient with good footwork and body positioning, he can make some nice plays on the ball. Here, he understands where his help is in the middle of the field and plays with really good discipline as he sifts over the releases of the other receivers. Since he has help inside, he knows he doesn't need to haul ass and over-pursue the drag across the field. That allows him to be in good position and under control when the receiver bounces back outside. He's able to change direction and get a nice pass breakup. Even if he does get beat initially, he has really good closure ability, which means he's able to close distance as receivers make their break. That's all contingent upon being in good body position though. When he is, he can be a legit player in a man coverage defense. Okuda was at his best when he could initiate contact through the route and tether himself to the receiver. Having that feel and ability to locate the receiver throughout the route helped him immensely. With outside leverage here, Okuda does a great job of getting in on the receiver after the release and keeping himself in phase throughout the route. He doesn't have to rely on his eyes or being patient because he can feel their movements and where they're trying to run. The problem, as you might expect by now, is his inability to do that on an even remotely consistent level. The timing just isn't there. He attempted to use his physicality more as a recovery mechanism than as a tool to keep himself in phase with the receiver. Here against DeAndre Hopkins gets him to immediately turn his hips so that he can break back to a slant. Okuda realizes that too late though. He tries to shoot his hand to get a piece of Hopkins and slow him down, but he's already beat and off balance. Okuda has some nice tools, and he showed some glimpses of what he could be with better coaching and a better understanding of the game. However, the 118 QBR he gave up in 2020 could have been much higher. He was picked on early and often, and until he cleans up his technique, that's going to continue in 2021. The good news is that corners often take big leaps in their second and third seasons, and now with a full offseason in front of him and a new coaching staff, Okuda will have a shot to live up to his high draft pedigree and lock down whatever receivers try to walk in to Detroit.